You're currently watching the Stella Modeling User Guide video series, which is a series that is intended to be a companion to the Stella M user guide. This video will cover the modeling panel for a single year model. In this video will be an overview of the modeling panel, and then we'll go over the three different panes within the modeling panel: the Pathways pane, the Days Assisted pane, and the Pathway Performance pane. And then we'll talk about editing pathway assumptions using the modeling panel. The modeling panel, which is at the bottom of the modeling page, allows users to view and adjust the model pathways for the target year. What you're seeing on the screen is what it looks like. In the modeling panel, there is a separate section for each universe. The top section is for the inflow universe, and the bottom section is for the long-term homeless universe. You can collapse either section by clicking these arrows next to them. And then there are the three panes: the Pathways pane, the one on the very left, the middle pane, which is the Days Assisted pane, and then the right pane, which is the Pathway Performance pane. Let's take a look at a sample single year model in Stella M and scroll to the bottom to the modeling panel. First, there is an instruction section. This is by default collapsed and can be expanded by clicking the arrow next to it. These instructions give general information about the modeling panel and instructions on each pane within the panel. So I'm going to collapse that again. And then also, again, we have the sections for each universe in the modeling panel, and each universe can be collapsed using these arrows at the top left of that universes section. Starting on the left is the Pathways pane. The Pathways pane has two views, which you can see up here: the percent of universe served view and the percent of universe view. We'll go into more detail about these views, but first I wanted to talk about what is the same in both views. That would be the total number of households in the universe, which is always at the top. This one says that there's a total of 500 households in the inflow universe. And then you have the total here again, and then there is the number of unserved households, and then the number of served households. The number of served households, this field is where you would enter the number of households projected to be served in the target year. In most cases, for a single year model, you are modeling an ideal homeless response system, and therefore would be planning to serve all households. So that in that case, that would be all 500 households. Now let's get into the different views. So first is the percent of universe served view, which is the default primary view. This is where all data entry is completed for this pane. And what this view shows is, of all the households that are expected to be served in the target year, so there's 500 in this field, what is the percent of households expected to go through each pathway? And then we have the percent of universe view, which is a read-only view. This view shows, of the total number of households in this universe, what is the percent of households associated with each pathway, so as opposed to being calculated as a percent of the served households. In the example on the screen, the percents displayed are the same between the views. This is because we currently have the model expecting to be serving all 500 households in the inflow universe. But if we change our assumption to show that we expect to only serve 400 households, now we can see that the percents changed in this view, while the percents did not change in the percent of universe served view. An important functionality to note is that the unserved number is dynamic. It automatically calculates based on the number of households put in the served field and the total number of households. Here, because it says we are expecting to serve 400 households of the 500 total, it automatically calculated to say that we are expecting to have 100 unserved households for the inflow universe. As we update the number of served households, if we scroll back up, the results preview charts and the dashboard updates as well, because they are also dynamic. So let's change this served number in the inflow universe back to 500, and we will see both change. This is a good way to see the impact that your assumptions have on this model. Back to the modeling panel. In the middle of it is the days assisted pane. This pane shows the number of days households are expected to experience homelessness and the number of days households are expected to be housed for each project type within a pathway. This pane is broken up into columns for each project type, and the labels for each column are the project type abbreviations assigned to that project type in the model library. And the number of days homeless is shown on the left side of a project type column in this color purple. And then the number of days housed is shown on the right side of a project type column and is in gray. So in this example, in the emergency shelter and rapid rehousing pathway, households are expected to experience homelessness for 90 days while in shelter, and then 30 days homelessness in rapid rehousing and 180 days housed in rapid rehousing. The darker the box is, the higher the value is. You can see that down here, this 365 days is darker than the rest of the boxes. As was discussed in the project type library video, the order of these columns can be altered in the model library. To do this, go up to the Pathways and Project Types button in the navigation toolbar, and then click the Project Types tab. And to change around the order, you can use the numbers on the left-hand side. So let's say we want to see transitional housing first in that days assisted pane that we were just at. You can then click the up arrow. So now in that pane, you would see the transitional housing project type first, then emergency shelter, then rapid rehousing. This can be especially helpful if your model uses custom project types. It can help you see the flow of project types within a pathway better. So let's put these back the way that they were. Let's go back to our modeling pane. On the right side of the modeling panel is the pathway performance pane. This pane shows the pathway's performance on 3 key measures: days homeless, exits to permanent housing, and returns. The first column is the days homeless column. This displays the sum of non-overlapping days homeless of each project type in the corresponding pathway. So for an entire pathway, what is the total number of days that a household is expected to experience homelessness while going through that pathway? This number is calculated from the pathway assumptions under the number of days served in the project type section, which I'll show later. The second column in this pane is the exits to permanent housing destinations column. This number represents what percentage of households served in a specific pathway is expected to exit to a permanent destination. And the third column is the returns column. This percentage is saying of the households that were served in a specific pathway and exited to any destination, what percentage of those households is expected to return to homelessness or return to the system in 6 months. As we talked about before, you are actually able to edit your pathway and pathway assumptions through the modeling panel. And as you edit them, you are able to see the dashboard and the results preview charts update as well, because these are dynamic. So let's see what that looks like. If we start at the left in the pathways pane, again, you can change the served number, but you can also click on any of these percentages in the percent of universe served view and update them for this universe in this model. So if we change this emergency shelter only pathway to 30% instead of 40%, you can see the dashboard and results preview changing. A note here, because we did change that number, the sum of the percentages is now less than 100%. So that means there will be what is called a pathway gap. This means that there is a percentage of households served that are not associated with a pathway based on the percentages provided. That means that you are not done modeling. That percent needs to be allocated either across the current pathways in the model or with a new pathway. And then if we change it to 50% and the percentages end up being over 100%, These input boxes will turn red, and then you will get this message at the bottom that says total pathway usage exceeds 100%. And as you probably saw, the results preview chart will put up a red warning message saying that the total cannot exceed 100%. Let's put the percentage back to 40%. And in the Pathways pane, you are also able to drag and drop the pathways to change the order that you see them on the screen. Then in the middle, in the Days Assisted pane, you are able to edit the number of days households are expected to experience homelessness, or number of days they're expected to be housed within a specific project type in a pathway. Again, updating these numbers will update the dashboard and the results preview charts. You'll also see that editing these numbers will update the days homeless column in the Pathways Performance pane. So let's put that back to 90. And on the right in the Pathways Performance pane, you can edit the percentages for the exits to permanent destinations and returns columns. In a single year model, the exits to permanent housing and returns serve as a way to document assumptions, but will not change the projected inventory needed. But if we actually go to the system map, I'm going to just move these around so we can see everything better, and we change one of these percentages, let's say to 5%, you can see that it automatically updates as well. I'm going to change that back to 20. The days homeless column cannot be updated here because it is a calculated value. You can edit the values used to calculate this number by opening up the Edit Pathway window by clicking the pencil next to the pathway abbreviation in the Pathways pane. So I'm going to open that up. You're actually also able to do the other changes to the pathway assumptions that we were doing in the 3 panes in the modeling panel in this screen. So here is the Update Pathway window. The first percentage in this performance characteristics section is the same percentage that you see in the percent of universe served view in the Pathways pane. And then the number of days served in each project type section, that is where the days assisted pane numbers are from. And it is also the data used to calculate the days homeless number in the Pathways Performance pane. How that number is calculated is based on what the data is in this while homeless column, as well as which checkboxes are checked for the project types within a pathway. So what does this mean? Currently, in our Emergency Shelter to Rapid Rehousing pathway, both boxes are checked like you see here in this top row. That means that the households in this pathway are expected to experience homelessness for a total of 120 days. 90 days while in emergency shelter and an additional 30 days while in rapid rehousing. If we uncheck the box for the rapid rehousing project type, like it is in this bottom row, it means that these 30 days are already counted in the 90 days that are spent homeless in the emergency shelter. That means that their total days homeless calculation for this pathway would only be 90 days because that 30 days in rapid rehousing overlaps with the 90 days in emergency shelter. Back to the update pathway window that we were looking at, the exits to PH and returns columns in the pathway performance pane, those percentages are taken from these performance characteristics in the update pathway window. So let's get out of the update pathway window. And if you want to remove any of the pathways for a specific universe in this model, you would just click the trash can next to the pathway abbreviation in the Pathways pane. Thank you for watching this video, which is part of the Stella Modeling User Guide video series. Other videos in this series will cover different aspects of the site and how to use Stella M. On your screen is the URL for the Stella and System Modeling page on the HUD Exchange. That page will have more information and more resources for you, including the Stella M User Guide, which this series is a companion to. If you have a question about Stella M, please submit an AAQ. The URL for that is on your screen as well. Disclaimer: This material is supported by funding under an award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Neither the U.S. government nor any of its employees makes any warranty, express or implied, or assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the material. No references contained herein imply an endorsement of the material by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, its employees, or the U.S. government. Any opinions contained within the material are those of the authors and/or contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development or the U.S. government. Thank you for watching.